Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Thursday Morning Bite-Sized Buhl. My name is Kayla. I am the staff educator in the Buhl Planetarium, and I have a special guest with me today, Neha, one of our incredible volunteers. Feel free to say hello.
Hi, I'm Neha. As Kayla said, I'm a volunteer at the Science Center, and I'm currently a student at Carnegie Mellon University studying astrophysics.
Which is truly incredible. As we get started today, I do want to make everyone aware that we are recording this Facebook Live to post to our YouTube channel. Participants in the Facebook Live have consented to be recorded. Now, with that out of the way, we've got a special treat this morning. We're going to be talking about some of the stars that our ancestors would use as a clock, compass, or a calendar. We are using a free software called Stellarium. This is a software that you can download right at home on your cell phone or on your computer. If you do have that software open right now, the settings I am using, I currently have us positioned at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we're looking at the sky tonight at 11 o'clock. Now let's jump right in. I always like to start these if this is the first time that you are joining us. I always like to start by finding a very bright group of stars and playing a little game I call star hopping. If you're a returning visitor, you may already know which 7 stars we're looking at. Tonight, when you're looking up, you want to look very high in the sky. You'll find 3 stars that look like a handle, followed by 4 stars that look like a bowl. This is a shape that we call here in the United States the Big Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper is what we call an asterism. It's a star picture that anyone can make up. And asterisms are unique depending on where you are around the world. Here in the United States, we think the Big Dipper looks like a big spoon. But if we traveled to, let's say, England, they thought it looked like a plow. In China, they thought it looked like the emperor's cart. So it became very hard for early astronomers to share information because we all called the same region of the sky by a different name. Until the International Astronomical Union divided our sky into 88 regions. They created 88 official constellations that would be recognized by astronomers worldwide. So no matter who you would talk to from around the world, they would know what part of the sky you were looking in. While the Big Dipper did not become an official constellation, it is actually the tail of an official constellation. It is the tail of what we call Ursa Major, the Big Bear. Now, to find our next star, we're going to use these 2 stars in the outer part of the bowl of what we call the Big Dipper. Their names are Merak and Dubhe. You will take your finger, draw a line from Merak to Dubhe, continue that line out into space about 5 times the width of those stars, and you'll land here. This is one of the most important nighttime stars whenever you are navigating. This is what we call the North Star. Its official name is Polaris, and it makes up the tail of another shape in our sky that we call Ursa Minor, the baby bear. Now, on our screen right now, Polaris looks pretty bright, but in our night sky, it's actually a fairly dim star. Without the help of the Big Dipper, you could easily overlook this star. But once you find it, you learn a very important piece of information. If we are looking towards the North Star, what direction are we facing? We're going to be facing due north. Once you find north, you can find your other directions. If you're facing north, south is directly behind you. To your right is the east. To your left is the west. So now we know all of our directions. Now there's another really amazing figure that we can find in the sky. She kind of helps us tell the seasons. Neha, could you help us find her?
Yeah, so the next constellation that we'll be looking at is called Cassiopeia. And she looks like the letter W in the sky. So do you see any stars that form the letter W in the lower part of the screen? Kayla's pointing at it right there.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple seconds. She's right here.
So that constellation is Cassiopeia.
Now these three constellations are what we call circumpolar constellations, which is a very fancy way to say they make a circle around Polaris. What's really special about these stars is here in Pittsburgh, they will never fully set below the horizon. We can always see them. Throughout the year, they will just change position. Sometimes Cassiopeia looks like a W. Other parts of the year, she'll look like an M, a 3, or an E. It just depends on when you're looking up. So she can help us kind of tell the seasons once you memorize her patterns. But we want to see where all of the action is really happening, which means we need to look in the opposite of the north, which is going to be south. So we're going to slowly spin our view here to look towards the southern sky. There we go. This is where things are constantly changing. And we're going to start by finding 3 very bright stars that are used kind of like a calendar throughout the year. These 3 stars make up an asterism that we call the summer triangle. Now, despite its name, the summer triangle can actually tell us the start of 3 different seasons based on its position directly after sunset. So let's start by finding some of these stars. We are going to start by finding this star right here. Where do we want to go? Vega, inside of Lyra, the harp. Once we find Lyra the harp, we are going to swing down towards the horizon, and we are going to find the star Altair inside of Aquila, the eagle. And swinging up, we are going to find the bright star Deneb inside of Cygnus, the swan. Deneb actually means tail feather, and it's found in the tail of our swan here. Now these 3 stars, based on their position, can tell you the start of summer, fall, and winter. And we're a little after sunset now, so they're a little higher than what they should be in our sky. But if they are sitting on the eastern horizon at sunset, that means spring has turned to summer. If they are directly above you, right after the sun sets, that means summer has turned to fall. If they are on the western horizon when the sun sets, fall has just turned to winter. But let's continue our little star hopping game. While things are always changing in the south, you can actually still use the Big Dipper to star hop to other stars in the sky. Neha, could you take us to our next star here?
Yeah, so we're going to start in the bowl of the Big Dipper. And we're going to follow the handle down, and we're going to arc to a star named Arcturus. And the star that you land on is part of a constellation named Bootes, the herdsman or the shepherd. In my opinion, he doesn't look much like a shepherd in the sky. He looks more like an upside down tie or an ice cream cone. But that is the first constellation that we'll find using the handle of the Big Dipper. and then from Arcturus. So first we arced to Arcturus, and now we're going to spike to a star named Spica. And Spica is in the constellation of Virgo. Now, you might recognize the name Virgo from astrological signs, and that's because Virgo lies in what is called the zodiac. So, Kayla, do you want to talk more about the zodiac and other constellations there?
Certainly. Before we hop onto our zodiac, Virgo is actually sometimes called the bringer of the harvest. So she appears in our early evening sky and would tell ancient farmers when to begin tilling their fields, and then she disappears before early fall, where she then tells us to begin collecting our harvests and actually prepare for winter. So she was part of our ancient calendar. Now, as Neha said, she is one of those zodiac constellations. There are 12 of these constellations in our sky that form a band around our planet. They almost seem to encircle us from our perspective on Earth. So once you find one, you can actually find the others that are up during that time of night by swinging directly to the east or to the west. If we follow along our path here, we'll see some more friends like Leo the lion. This triangle shape here is actually Libra, the scales. And then we're going to get to my favorite one. It looks like a giant fish hook in the sky. That is the tail of Scorpius, the scorpion. Now, the tail of our scorpion here was actually known to Polynesian cultures as Maui's hook. You may recognize it from the Disney movie Moana, where it became very popular. There is a very bright star that is at the end of Maui's hook, or in the heart of our scorpion. This star's name is Antares, which roughly translates to not Mars. Now, this star was actually used in what we call wayfinding. Wayfinding was used by the Polynesian cultures for navigating by the stars. And they would divide our sky, they would memorize lots of different stars and when they would rise and set, and they had 32 different coordinates on what they called their star compass. Now, their compass wasn't actually written down, it was all memorized. And based on when a particular star would rise, they would know which direction they were facing. They would also use the help of the sun, the moon, the planets in the sky, and even the clouds to be able to navigate the Pacific Ocean, which is really impressive and required lots of memorization. Now, our path of the zodiac is not just cool because it's 12 very special constellations in our sky, that it is actually the path of our sun, our moon, and our major planets from our perspective here on Earth. So if you're ever wanting to spot a planet in the night sky, you want to look along the path of the zodiac. Throughout the year, you can spot Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, or Saturn using just your eyes. Now, unfortunately for us tonight at 11 o'clock, there are no planets we can spot. If you happen to be an early morning riser or maybe a late nighter, you can spot 2 planets in our early morning sky. We're going to advance our time here. We're going to transition to about 4 o'clock in the morning. As the Earth spins, we're going to see more constellations rise into view. We can see a teapot shape here. This is Sagittarius, the Centaur Archer. Next door, we can see what looks like a sailboat. That is Capricornus, the Mer Goat. Continuing our path of the zodiac across our sky. Oops. Let's spin this here. We can see Aquarius, the water bringer, Pisces, the fish, and Aries, the ram. Now, as I mentioned, there are 2 planets that you're going to be able to spot, and we are going to teach you a little trick to finding them. So if we're looking for them in the morning, Neha, where can we expect to find these planets?
We can still look at the zodiac constellations and find these planets traveling through the zodiac. And the first of the two planets that we're going to look at today is Jupiter. So when we're looking for Jupiter, we see it closer to the horizon this morning at 4:30. And let's zoom in a little bit on Jupiter. So you might know Jupiter as the largest planet in our solar system. And the cool thing about it is, I think, its colorful stripes. And those are instantly recognizable from the interactions that happen on the planet between different types of gases. Because Jupiter is a gas giant, and it's mainly made up of gases like ammonia and a few others, which interact to create these beautiful stripes. And these stripes are formed because of the storms happening. And one of the most famous storms on Jupiter is called the Great Red Spot, which unfortunately we can't see right now from this view. It's a little bit in the side, kind of setting on us. But the beautiful red hue in Jupiter is due to the gases. Now, the four bright objects that you might have noticed as we were zooming into Jupiter are called the Galilean moons. So hundreds of years ago, when Galileo pointed his first telescope at the sky and he looked at Jupiter, he was able to see 4 points of light that traveled around Jupiter, and he tracked them. And he realized that these were moons of Jupiter. And these are 4 of the brightest and most visible moons. And they're called Io, Ganymede, Callisto, and the fourth one, Kayla, what is the fourth one?
Europa.
Europa. It's funny because it's my favorite one too. Sometimes just slips your mind.
It's got that really funny name.
Yeah. But the cool thing about these 4 moons is that they're only 4 of, I think it's like 70 some now. I feel like every few years they discover that there's more moons to some of these gas giants. So Jupiter has the most moons in our solar system at the current time. But we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to Saturn. So this is really cool. You can see Jupiter with your naked eye or with binoculars if you go out into your backyard on a really dark night. And if you have a telescope, you might even be able to make out some of the stripes on the planet. So like I said before, we're gonna hop our way over to our next planet, Saturn, which is another planet that Galileo looked at. And he thought Saturn looked like a head with ears. So as we zoom in, maybe you'll be able to see that image a little bit, where the rings stick out from the side and look like their ears. And Saturn's rings are actually belts of rock and dust and ice orbiting the planet really fast. And from as far away as we are, they look like solid rings. Now, Saturn also has many, many moons. Currently, it is confirmed to have upwards of 60 moons, but there have been some moons proposed, which haven't been confirmed yet. But if they are confirmed, then Saturn will have more moons than Jupiter. So I think it's really cool that we're still discovering that some of these planets still have moons, just because we're getting better images from probes and better satellites and telescopes that can tell us a lot more about these worlds. Now, Saturn is also a gas giant, and I think the coolest thing about it is that if you put it in a bathtub, if we had a bathtub big enough to fit Saturn, it would actually float because it is made of less dense gas. And you can kind of see the stripes on Saturn as well. Maybe not as amazing, not as red as on Jupiter, but these occur because of similar interactions.
Saturn's really one of my favorite views in the whole solar system. And as we back away, you can kind of see that ear shape that was being described earlier. It just kind of looks very oblong, kind of like there's two little ears hanging off of the side of the planet.
Yes, and Saturn is another planet that you can look at with binoculars if you go out into your backyard or even with a relatively weak telescope. Maybe you won't get the full definition, but I think you'll be able to see those ears that Galileo saw.
Now we've gotten an amazing look at some of these stars and constellations that we could use as a clock, calendar, or even a compass today. There is still so much more that we could talk about. There are those 88 official constellations in our night sky. When we use just our eyes, we are able to see thousands of stars, distant galaxies, and nebula. Of course, with telescopes, we can always spot a whole lot more. But that is just our little tour this morning. We hope that you all enjoyed learning about our clock, calendar, and compass in our sky. Now, we are open at the Science Center, so please come visit us at the Buhl Planetarium to learn more about the stars in space and everything around us. We are limited capacity and do offer time ticketing. You can buy those tickets online at carnegiesciencecenter.org. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you so much for joining me, Neha. It was a pleasure doing this with you. I hope you all have a fantastic Thursday, and we'll see you all again real soon.